Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics. In this video, I'd like to discuss yet another potential conflict of interest between a Western leader and Russian operators in the West. But first, if you find yourself enjoying the video, then please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So, we pretty much know that Brexit isn't simply an act of national self-destruction, although that's certainly how it built up over the last couple of decades, but part of the same attack by Vladimir Putin to destabilise the West. You frequently see the same players having a guiding hand on both the Leave campaigns for Brexit and the Trump election campaigns in 2016. In addition, there are always links with Russians close to Putin as well. Now, although a great deal of damage has already been done as a result of the Russian-backed cyber warfare that was used to persuade people to vote various ways, Theresa May did start to get tough with the oligarchs in the wake of the Salisbury nerve agent incidents. She instigated extra checks on Russians, their private travel and the goods they were bringing into the country. She was starting to get tough on the dirty money that they were bringing into the country as well. But Theresa May is no longer Prime Minister. Boris Johnson is. So are there links between Johnson and former or current favourites of Vladimir Putin? Yes, certainly. And more links than we even know publicly. When Boris Johnson was made Foreign Secretary, a role that generally includes oversight of MI6, this is the British equivalent of the CIA, that oversight was moved elsewhere because Johnson was considered to have a serious conflict of interest over his relationships with various Russian oligarchs. Now think about what that means. The structure of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office had to be restructured to accommodate Boris Johnson becoming Foreign Secretary because it was considered a risk to national security to have him overseeing MI6 because he couldn't be trusted. Well, he's now Prime Minister. He has oversight over everything. Johnson is also known to be friendly with Alexander Temerko, who made his money in Russia from arms initially. Now, he is not, at least publicly, friendly towards Putin, although he has been in the past. But he did nonetheless donate £25,000 to James Wharton, the man who ran Boris Johnson's leadership campaign and who, as an MP a few years ago, put forward the bill to carry out the Brexit referendum. Now, £25,000 just for Wharton, a backbench MP, that's a huge sum of money. And especially for an MP who has no real influence over Temerko's role in the UK, which is in the field of energy. But he has donated about £1 million in total to the Conservatives as a whole as well. He was also the lobbyist behind the attempt to oust Theresa May as Prime Minister back in December. Now, the National Crime Agency in the UK is reported to be concerned that Boris Johnson is about to withdraw the funding for their investigations used to stem the flow of dirty money from Russia into London. After all, Johnson has made a lot of promises since becoming leader that are going to need funding somehow. His insane scheme to take us out of the EU without any legal arrangements with our closest neighbours, to say nothing of the rest of the world, are not going to give him much money for his white elephant. But taxing Russian money instead of preventing it coming to the country, as he did as Mayor of London, seems to be much more in his plans. It was always felt that the hardline Brexiteers wanted to turn Britain into a haven for financial pirates, and this seems likely to come to fruition under Johnson. A former British intelligence officer was quoted as saying, having Russian oligarchs here, all with their inside lines to the Kremlin, ought to be considered a national security risk, not an economic opportunity. And that is the crux of all of this. With Brexit, people on both sides have been tossing the phrase traitor around an awful lot, almost never accurately on either side. But if we have a Prime Minister who could not be trusted to oversee our international security agency and who is planning a course of action that inland security forces consider to be a national security issue, you surely have to wonder if we haven't just installed a traitor into Downing Street. And trying to pin down who the risks are is tricky. Not all wealthy Russians laundering their money in London have links to President Putin, but there have been instances of Russians with no real links to the Kremlin being asked to do one of their favours in return for maintaining their wealth. Robert Mueller highlighted this sort of situation in his report on Russian interference with the US presidential election, for example. And that same Russian interference that has been evident in the US has also been shown in the UK. Not that people are suggesting that a wealthy Russian should be viewed with suspicion. Britain is part of a global market, even though Brexiteers want to change that. And there are genuine Russian businessmen that just want to invest in the UK and other Western nations. But this is why it's so important that our security agencies be free to carry out necessary investigations to tell the genuine investors from the criminal money launderers, from the political agitators acting on behalf of a hostile Kremlin. And it's not just the people of Britain who are concerned with Boris Johnson's Russian links, or at least should be concerned. A Republican congressman was so concerned with a picture showing Johnson with someone who had been accused of being a link between the Russian government and Trump's campaign team that he asked Robert Mueller if Johnson had been compromised. Now, Mueller was not able to respond to that. To be fair, it wasn't in his remit to investigate associated issues with foreign politicians. But what I would say is the take home from this is that Boris Johnson is simply a reckless maverick, delivering whatever he promised he would a few years ago on a coin toss as to whether to support or oppose Brexit. But someone for whom the security agencies did have concern and might well be taking instructions from others as Prime Minister. Frankly, taking instructions from anyone in this role is bad enough. But the thought that he may be doing so by a nation which is clearly trying to destabilise the West is too horrific to contemplate. Now, I do have to stress that there are no proven cases of Boris Johnson being told what to do by anyone associated with the Kremlin. We haven't, for example, seen him say how great a guy Vladimir Putin is in the same way that Donald Trump has. But I do have to keep coming back to the fact that he wasn't allowed oversight of MI6 because of his links with Russians close to Putin. That alone means that he is a serious risk to national security. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link. And until next time, I'll see you later.